Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Attaining the Second Cognition. This is Endall Beall. The topic of this particular video is Deconstruction and Rebuilding. We're fixing to move into a new phase in the material that we're going to be writing, and I felt it necessary that we should provide some explanations on the material we've written so far. As those of you who've been following the videos and doing the work realize, there is a process of cognitive deconstruction, which means tearing down the illusions of the ego house and the false reality that we think is reality predicated on beliefs and false assumptions. The first series of books that we've written have all mostly been focused on that deconstruction process, on the destruction process of the illusions. And we haven't really focused a whole lot on what you're going to do after that destruction process is complete. Our next series of books, the series title is going to be Beyond the Second Cognition. The first book in that series is going to be called Gutting Mysticism, exposing the roots of all mystical and supernatural beliefs. It's the last book that I intend to produce where I have to draw on reference material to convince those that require authoritative references to convince them of anything. After that, the books we write are going to be new information in reference to second cognition, the vastness of the cosmos, how it's laid out as far as we understand it at this point, how it functions as much as we understand it at this point. And there's not going to be any earthly reference material offered. It's going to be there on a strictly take it or leave it basis. You can either accept it or you don't want to. It makes me no difference one way or the other, but we will be producing that material. The destruction process starts, as many of you know, by taking on the external illusions. The deeper part of the destruction process is when you have to start removing your own inner illusions about yourself. This is that journey across the dark abyss within, discovering the habits and things that we do. And I'm not talking strictly behavioral habits. I'm talking thinking habits, perceptual habits, how you perceive the way you are, whether you beat yourself up over doing certain things and things of that nature. Whenever you feel anxiety with yourself for not accomplishing something, that's the type of mental habits I'm talking about. This is the deeper avenue of the destructive process. Removing the superficial world and the illusions that keep your attention embraced, that's only the first phase. It's just the warm-up round. The deeper stuff comes after that. But by removing and destroying the external illusions, you at least learn how to destroy illusions when the time comes for you to start destroying your own inner illusions fabricated by the virus in your mind that makes you believe certain things about yourself or the real you when in fact they're merely virus habits. To take another tack, and it's important in this destruction process, you hear lots of people out there on YouTube, with their videos, oh, you're being psychologically controlled, you're being manipulated by TV and radio and things like this. And it's one thing to say it, but it's something entirely different when you have the information presented to you that shows you how it's done and how it's been accomplished for more than a century. I'll have a book ready in a day or two entitled The Psychology of Becoming Human: Evolving Beyond Psychological Conditioning. What this book does is it provides the reader the in-depth, unquestionable information that shows how the field of psychology has been used as a weapon against humanity since it was conceived and initiated as a profession. I hope psychologists read this book because they're going to learn more from this book than their color between the lines, peer-reviewed college, believe in Freud educational system teaches them. Maybe some will read the book and really advance themselves and start to understand human psychology rather than just manipulating the psyche according to the whims of the psychological profession at this point in time. I want to share a short passage from the Stoic Consciousness book, which is going to be released probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks when we finish marking it up and editing it. The book's written. I just have to, clean up the editing messes and get it published. But this is something I want all of our listeners to seriously consider. As human beings, we can barely imagine starting anything before we have an ending in sight. So everything we do has an end goal before we ever start our beginnings. We rarely start anything without making the end result our very starting point. We are a species that is indoctrinated with endings, not beginnings. It goes beyond our present form of thinking to perceive a beginning that has no projected ending or final goal to achieve. This is all finite thinking. To create a new reality, we must genuinely perceive the infinite, which goes on forever without end. To perceive this requires a massive readjustment in our current limited thinking patterns. Within the framework of infinity, there is no end. Only an ongoing progression to advance and grow, no different than the road to the second cognition opens up to us. The second cognition, just like the new reality, is only a starting point, with no end point beyond those we set for ourselves. The second cognition may seem like a goal from the standpoint of first cognition thinking, but once you pass through that door, you will discover that it is not an end, but only a beginning for more. The second cognition is only the first threshold of infinite opportunities for personal growth and advancement. It is not an ending. Now, for those who may want to contest this idea that we are a species that's lost in endings and can't think about beginnings without an end being there in front of the beginning, let's talk about end times prophecies, or end game, or closure. How many times have you heard that cute little word? Oh, I'm seeking closure. Well, closure is an ending. Everything you think, however you think, is an ending. You don't know how to think about a beginning without the ending already being there first. End of days, end game, end times, closure. It's all the same shit. And that's the only way that first cognition humans can think. What's the end goal? What's the final result? Well, hell, we don't know what the final result is because we haven't even started yet. But if we don't know the final result, we can't start it. I want all of you to seriously ponder this information, because in order to step into higher level cognitive advancement, you got to let go of that shit. You're not dealing in a world with endings anymore. You're dealing with infinite potential for beginnings, which means you're going to have to turn your thinking around 180 degrees. This is just like it was told in the New Paradigm trilogy. And what the Stoic Consciousness book is where I take the relevant passages, or what I found was most relevant in the New Paradigm trilogy, and translated them into terminology that was a little bit less enigmatic sounding than how it was presented in the book. I'm serving as an interpreter to, excuse the expression, no insult mean, dumb it down. But you have to understand, before we can build anything, there has to be the destruction process. It's just like if you have an old building there and you want to put up a new one, you can't put up the new one until you tear the old one down. All of the cognitive work that you have been working on your personal path has been the destruction of that old building called first cognition. And what you build aside from that, on that site where that old building stood, is a new beginning. We're not here to fix a broken system of cognition. We're here to create a new one, something to replace it, just like that new building is going to replace the old. We're not here to fix it and throw Band-Aids on it and duct tape and baling wire. If you have any concepts about fixing this system, you're in error in your thinking. You're invited to do something completely and totally new, to step into the unknown and literally create a cognitive reality. If you can't do that, then you're wasting your time. But if you want to do that, you're going to have to retool your thinking away from endings, always looking for the end before you see the start of the game. And that's going to require a tremendous amount of cognitive readjustment. And that's why I'm throwing it out now, because it only gets heavier from here, folks. We've told you all along that there is a really big picture involved in this stuff. And regardless of the hungry humans that say, oh, I'm prepared for the wisdom for the universe, the books we're fixing to release are going to give you that chance. And we're going to see just how able and capable you are to digest the magnitude of the cosmos. So this is just a little bit of a heads up. I wanted to let you know that the Psychology of Becoming Human will be out at least in the paper format in the next couple of days, and Kindle will take a couple of days after that. And it won't be that long before Soika Consciousness gets cleaned up and released. And then I'm going to be up to my eyeballs in putting together the Gutting Mysticism book, which is going to be a tremendous project for me. And for those doing the work, stay the course and don't give up on yourselves.